You know, in the huge, sprawling story of artificial intelligence, there's one name that just keeps popping up at every single turn. A guy who's not only building the technology, but he's also shaping the rules and literally architecting the world that it's going to live in.
All right, let's just dive right in. We're talking about a technological shift so big, people are comparing it to the discovery of fire. I mean, think about that for a second. And right there, in the dead center of it all, is Sam Altman.
And that brings up the single biggest question that hangs over everything we're going to talk about. When one person has this much influence over a tool this powerful, what does their vision for the future actually look like? So to figure out where we might be heading, we kind of have to figure him out. This isn't just about AI, this is about getting inside the mind of one of its most important architects. See, before OpenAI was a name everyone knew, Altman was already a legend in Silicon Valley. His proving ground was this place called Y Combinator, and that's where he really mastered the art of building things on an almost unbelievable scale. So what exactly is Y Combinator? Well, imagine a super elite boot camp for startups, the best of the best. They find the most promising young companies, give them their first chunk of cash, connect them with all the right people, and their only goal is to turn them into absolute giants. And here's the key part. Altman's job wasn't just to focus on one single product. His role was to find and grow hundreds of these world-changing ideas all at the same time. It's like he was playing chess, but the board was the entire tech industry. And the results? Well, they speak for themselves. Under his watch, the companies in Y Combinator's portfolio grew to a combined value of over $600 billion. That's not just some abstract number. We're talking about names you know, companies like Airbnb, Stripe, and Reddit. This is where he learned to think in whole systems, not just single companies. So after you've proven you can build an entire ecosystem of companies, what do you do for an encore? Well, if you're Sam Altman, you set your sights on something way, way more ambitious, building the foundation for a totally new kind of intelligence. This was the big pivot, the OpenAI gambit. This slide really tells the story of OpenAI's evolution, because it didn't start as the monster company we know today. On the left, you see the original mission. It was a nonprofit, a research lab for the public good. But they hit a wall. They realized that building true AGI would cost a truly unimaginable amount of money. So they pivoted to this thing on the right, this unique capped profit model, basically a way to bring in Wall Street money to fuel the original mission. And this quote right here from Altman himself, this is the official reason for everything. It's their North Star. Every decision they make, every product they release, it's all framed by this one incredibly ambitious goal to make sure that AI that's smarter than us actually helps us instead of, harming us. But that mission has created some serious drama. This timeline from November 2023 shows you just how intense it got. On Friday, November 17th, the board, the very people meant to guard that mission, fired him. Just like that. They said they couldn't trust him. By Monday, the company was basically in full-blown rebellion, with almost every single employee saying they'd quit. And just 2 days later, he was back as CEO. This whole saga just perfectly captures the tension between the mission and the man who has become its face. And this is where we get to the next level of his thinking. Because for Altman, creating AGI, that's not the end of the story, it's just the beginning. And he's already busy building the other pieces of the world he thinks AGI is going to create. He's asking this really basic question. If AI automates millions of jobs and completely changes what it means to be human online, then what do we do? What new systems for identity, for the economy, do we need to build? This is the logic that leads him to his other, equally massive projects. So take Worldcoin. I know on the surface it sounds pretty weird. People are scanning their eyeballs with this device called the orb. But if you look at the steps, it starts to make sense. The iris scan creates a unique digital ID that proves you're a human. Why? Well, think about a future filled with AIs. How do you prove you're real? And as a little incentive, people who sign up get a share of cryptocurrency, which kind of hints at his next big idea. And that idea is Universal Basic Income, or UBI. The concept's pretty simple. In a world where AI could do a lot of jobs, maybe the government just gives every citizen a regular check. No strings attached. Altman sees this as a necessary safety net for a future with so much AI. And that Worldcoin project, that could be the perfect system for delivering a UBI to every single person on Earth. So when you put all these pieces together, the guy from Y Combinator, the leader of OpenAI, the architect of Worldcoin, how do you make sense of it all? It really brings us to a fundamental question about the man himself. There are really two main ways to look at Sam Altman, and honestly, both make sense. On one hand, you've got the prophet, the ultimate builder who sees these huge problems coming, AGI, job disruption, and just starts building the solutions, no matter how crazy they seem. But on the other hand, you have the paradox, a guy who talks about sharing power while at the same time gathering an incredible amount of it himself. And that creates a single point of failure for what might be the most important technology humanity ever creates. Ultimately, what Sam Altman is building isn't just a product. He's building a complete vision for our future. So whether you see him as a prophet or a paradox, the real question he forces all of us to think about is one we just can't ignore. As this new age begins, what kind of world do we want to build? And who do we trust to hold the blueprints?